and welcome back to the Being Grounded podcast. We're on a mission to help you redefine success, become the best version of yourself, and find peace in this fast-paced world. Hi, my name is Fleur.
And hi, my name is Molly.
And in today's episode, we were actually meant to film something completely different, but then we decided to film an episode all about what to do when it feels like not, necessarily the world is falling apart, but like there's a lot going on in the world, whether it's, the things that are being said on the news or everything that's going on with social media and the pressures of that, or even your own life and having bad news maybe come into your life or having things just suddenly turn upside down and you not knowing how to deal with that.
Just overwhelmed.
Just feeling overwhelmed and knowing that it's normal and that we are all in the same boat and that even Molly and I will have moments like this in our life and just understanding how to navigate those moments. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So I came up with this idea recently because of everything that is currently going on in Iran, and I feel the need to slightly touch on this just because not only am I half Iranian and I've got family there and obviously I've got ties and it's my home country, at the same time when there's something going on in the world, it just only feels human to talk about it. And it's not even with this, it's everything else that's going on in the world as well, with Ukraine and Palestine and just not even that, but everything. And I think sometimes the pressures of needing to know enough and needing to know what you can do to help can just feel so overwhelming, and you just end up feeling so completely helpless. And not only that, but when you've got that going on in the world, and then you also go, you scroll. So you're seeing one video of everything that's going on in Iran, for example, the protests that are going on, I think it's about 12,000 people, civilians, have already died in the past 4 days. And then you'll scroll down and there'll be a video about New Year, New Me, and how to be the best version of yourself this 2026, and how to do all of these habits and have all of these goals. It can just feel very overstimulating and almost like life is just a simulation game, because it's like, what? How can that be on the same feed? And I think trying to navigate that and trying to navigate the fear of everything that's going on in the world, and not only that but also the fear of everything that's going on in your own life and how you feel in your own life, can be such a difficult thing to do. It's not like there's no rule book for it, there's no guidebook for it, there's no one out there saying, okay, this is what you need to do and this is how you need to navigate your emotions. It's very much you kind of have to figure it out on your own, and I just think it's difficult. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, I totally agree. And I feel like it can be very hard going from seeing videos of children being killed, as an example, in Palestine, or like Fleur said about what's going on in Iran, and just so much just horrific things, that people go through, to then see New Year, New Me. And last night we were actually talking about how self-development can sometimes feel quite privileged, in the sense that that's only a certain people's reality who can actually attain that. Only a certain type of person can attain the gym or this and that because of the privilege to do so. Do you know what I mean? The privilege to have money to get a membership, the privilege to have money to go, the privilege of having a car that drives you there, or have, it being near you, or whatever it is, as an example, just looking at the gym. And so for people to go online and tell you, if you want to be in self-development, you have to go to the gym and you have to be disciplined. And some people's reality is just not like that. And even going through your own personal struggles and, having loved ones that are sick, or having anything that you could be going through in life, to try and almost force yourself to be disciplined because someone online told you to do that, to force yourself to get up and New Year, New Me because someone online told you that, is just ridiculous. And I think it creates so much pressure as well around self-development. I always think that self-development should be wisdom. It should be advice from things you've learned in your life, how you handled being bullied, how you handled grief, how you handled things that you've been through, personal struggles, to help somebody else who's also in that position. That to me is self-development, because and it's also advice, to me that is giving advice. That's actually helping somebody. And I think sometimes the lines can get a little bit blurred between that and between a very forced trending type of self-development, where it's very much the New Year, New Me, vision board this. And don't get me wrong, I love a vision board. I'm all for setting goals. I'm all for New Year, New Me. I personally really like it. I think it can be a benefit. But also as well, you have to also take into consideration that a lot of this is man-made and a lot of this is capitalism. Like, it is. A lot of this is just people profiting because they can come out of a new journal, or they can come out of a new this, and then you kind of buy into the idea of you are going to be setting goals and you are going to be going on this new self-development journey when actually you're just putting money in more people's pockets. What you should actually be focusing on of self-development is improving yourself. What are you struggling with? What traumas do you have that you haven't worked through? That is self-development. And just kind of eliminating the pressure for you to always be this perfect self-development guru and it's always developing yourself just makes wonders, you know. Like, as an example, yesterday all the habits fell out the window. I went to bed at like 2 a.m. Do you know what I mean? So it's just one of those days, but I could have beat myself up about it and thought, oh my god, I wonder what so-and-so online would have said about this if they'd have found out. What would so-and-so online have said if I'd have skipped the gym today, or you know what I mean? So like, but at the end of the day, these people aren't living your life. And I always find as well a lot of the time that sometimes self-development can come across where the people who are advising you or giving this specific type of advice are actually very rich. Like, they're very wealthy people, they're people who have a lot of money. And not to say that you can't attain that level of wealth, because you absolutely can, but what I'm trying to say is everyone's reality is different. And sometimes to go from seeing videos of people, you know, being slaughtered and genocided and colonized, or like from going between those things to then seeing like seeing new year, new me, it just kind of feels very dystopian. The thing that surrounds with fame, and you just look at their reality and you look at these people's reality, and it's just so dystopian. It's literally giving District 12, you know? So I really think that just being aware of what's going on and speaking up is so important. Yeah. What about you?
I really agree with what you said, and there were so many things that I was thinking about while you said that. One of them, like a good example of what I was thinking about yesterday, was I was really focusing on like my health, and especially because I work in the NHS and I am serving people every day who are sick or who have cancer or who have long-term illnesses, and it really just puts it into perspective for me how lucky I am to be not just young and have my whole life ahead of me, but also to be healthy and to be able to go to the gym and move my body, to be able to have the ability to not be able to finish a meal because I'm full when there is someone in the world who would just die for even a quarter of what's on my plate, to be able to know that I have the freedom to create the life of my dreams and that I have the support to do that when there are a lot of people who don't and who will never be able to do that because they just don't have the ability to do it. And I think, yes, it can be very overwhelming to realize these things, but also just having gratitude I think is so important, because an issue is, and this is a lesson that I sort of learned from the book The Alchemist, where there's basically this tiny little segment where this boy is told, I don't remember the name of the person who was telling him to do this, but he was told to walk around this person's gorgeous, like not house, palace, sort of something in between, and to hold a spoonful of oil, but to make sure that he didn't drop it. And he did this, but for about half an hour he was looking at the spoon, making sure the oil didn't drop. And then when he went back, the man asked him, okay, you didn't drop any of the oil, but did you see anything around you? Did you see, you know, the Persian rugs? Did you see the views? Did you see the paintings? And he went, no, because I was so focused on the oil, I couldn't do that. So he said, okay, go back and look at everything. So he did, and he went and he properly absorbed everything around him, but he dropped all the oil from the spoon. And he went back to the man and he said, well, this is the problem. Some people are so focused on happiness, because this was his metaphor for happiness, that they forget everything else around them, or they're so focused on everything else around them that they forget happiness. And I kind of interpreted this to be about my like dreams and anyone's dreams in general, where sometimes when you do actually achieve the dreams that you want and the life that you want, or you achieve the habits that you've always wanted to do, or you realize that actually your life is starting to look the way that you see online, that you forget to be humble and that you forget to be grateful and that you forget how privileged you are and you forget all the things that you should be grateful for, and that you just forget who you were before all of that. You forget the humble version of you before all of that came along. And specifically for people that earn lots of money and who create their dream life and then are, you know, financially stable, you can even see that almost their ego changes, their pride changes, their personality changes, because they forget who they were before. And that lesson was so important to me, because I've always known that at the end of the day, even when I have achieved my dreams, and I don't necessarily think there's any like set destination, but even when I have, I will never turn a blind eye to everything that's going on in the world. I will always want to help people, and I've always known this about myself, that when I earn enough money, I want to be able to give as much as I can away to charity. Like, that's just something that I know will be very important for me, and will be one of like the top 3 things that I care about the most when it comes to what I will be doing with my money. And the ability to remember that I'm privileged, and also to know that there is so much I can do for other people, and there is so much I can do to help. And even though you might feel like hopeless and you might feel useless in a sense, there is always something you can do, whether it's talking to someone about it who might not even know that that's going on in the world, or whether it's talking to someone about the way you feel so that you don't feel so alone. Just community. And I think community is something that we really take for granted, because there's always going to be someone else who's in the exact same boat as you, that is feeling the exact same way. And Molly and I were literally talking about this the other day, about how every time we try to adhere to the trends on social media, or even like, for example, today we were going to film a completely different podcast episode, which you could necessarily say might be adhering to the trends that you see on social media, it never really goes, like, it never really does well. And I think that's because you're feeding into the trends, and you're feeding into what you think that people want to hear, but really that's just what social media wants to hear. But when you go against the grain and you actually speak to the audience in a way that you've not spoken to them before, or you speak to the people around you in a way that you've maybe not spoken to them before, and you open that door to vulnerability, to be able to enter a new version of yourself by collaborating with new ideas and collaborating with new thoughts and having new conversations with people that you might not have had conversations with before prior, you are allowing yourself to truly know someone else's story and your own story. And again, this is another lesson I learned from The Alchemist, but this isn't actually in his book, but the intro section he said that even if there was someone that maybe he didn't get along with, he knows that if he was to share his story with them and they were to share their story with his, they could become friends. Because when you know someone's story, you are able to befriend them. Like, when you know their story, you know why they act the way they do, you know why they choose the certain things that they choose, and it becomes easier for you to be able to familiarize yourself with them, because you're not just seeing them as a person, you're seeing them as a person with a story, with a history, with context. And with the whole like new year, new me and all of this, I think it's so easy to get caught up in it and to worry. At the end of the day, like, we're all suffering in our own way, and even the people that you see online who are waking up at 6 a.m. and going to the gym and doing this and doing that have had problems of their own and have days of their own where they're not able to show up as themselves. And you have to remember that social media is just a highlight reel. You hear it all the time, but it's very true. And I was even talking to mum about this the other day, and she was like, you are so, like, you are such a strong person, which I know that I am, but sometimes on YouTube it can seem that I don't have things going on in my life, because I obviously don't necessarily share those things. And it's very interesting to see, from the perspective of someone that knows me so well, what it's like to view me on my social media, and like the different kind of persona that I might have. And it's, you know, it's still me, it's still Fleur, but at the end of the day, like, you don't show up exactly as your authentic self, because it's a profession, it's a career, it's a job. You like any job that you have, you will go to that job with a more professionalism in your character and in your personality. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not being authentic, it just means that you're leaning into a more professional side of yourself, where you're more wary about what you say and what you do and how you come across, because you know that there are people that are listening to you and that you can influence people. And I always want to be as real as I can on social media, to know for the people that are watching my videos that I am human, and that I have problems of my own, and Molly is human and she has problems of her own, and we're not perfect. And we don't want you to like listen to this podcast and think that we have our life together, or that every single week we're staying grounded, or that every single week we've got our, you know, like, we're doing our 101 habits. Like, we're human beings, and that's just not the way that life works. Like, we have our days, we have our weeks, we have our months. Like, there are sometimes times where Molly and I don't want to film the podcast episode. In fact, maybe even this episode, we didn't even we weren't even sure if this was actually going to happen because of something that was going on in my life. And I just think, like, you wouldn't ever know that. You wouldn't ever know that maybe we would have questioned filming this episode. You would have just seen, oh, they're stepping up, they're filming another episode, they're very consistent. And so that is a great example of trying to remember that what you see on social media isn't always true and isn't always accurate, and that when someone seems like they've got everything together and they've got their whole life figured out, they could actually be more lost than you are, and you wouldn't ever know that. And sometimes it's the people who seem like they've got it figured out that are the people that are the most lost. And I know this from my own experience. I know this from having friends who always seem to have a 5-year plan, and then one day it would all just go to the bin and they would tell me that they were even more lost than they'd ever been. Just trying to understand that at the end of the day, we're not robots, we're human beings. We're gonna have our days, we're gonna have our moments, we're gonna have our weeks, our months, whatever it may be, or even a year. This doesn't need to be the best year of your life. This doesn't need to be the best decade of your life. This doesn't need to be the best age of your life. This doesn't need to be the best day, week, or month. And I think social media makes you feel like you always have to be your best self, and you always have to make this year the best year. And I'm guilty of that, because even Molly and I sometimes make content around that. And that's not to say that it's fake when we do, because I don't think it is. And like things like mood boards and stuff like that, it's very inspiring and it's very influencing.
100%.
And I definitely agree with a lot of it. But like Molly said, sometimes the new year, new me content
just isn't for everyone.
It's just not for everyone. I don't think it really should be for anyone, because I think we try to make it for everyone, and I do definitely think there's a lot of people that try and lean into that, but eventually you just get to a certain point where you just realize, like, it's fake. Like, it's all just so fake. Like, at the end of the day, this year is just as important as any other year you will have in your life, but it doesn't need to be the best one, just like how every other year that you've had doesn't need to be the best one. And I think that every year is different in its own sense. Every week, every month is different in its own sense, and we can try and go into it pretending like we know exactly what's going to happen, but you just don't know what life is going to throw at you.
Sometimes things just smack you right in the face. Sorry. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't know what the world is going to throw on you, what's going to happen on the news, what's happening to other people around you. You don't know what news other people are going to get. You don't know what news you're going to get. You don't know what's going to happen. And so you can only plan for the best, but the best might not happen. And that's not to be like, oh my God, Fleur, this is so morbid. It's just, I guess, being realistic in the sense that if the best doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that you can't get through it, and that doesn't mean that you're a failure, or that you should be better than what you are, or you should be better than what you're showing up as, or that you're not. Like, for example, Molly said, oh, if this person knew, then they would think this about me. No, because you know what? If that person knew, they would feel relieved, because they would know there's one more person in the world who's human like them. And I think that's why we need to be more real on social media. A good 5, 10, maybe even 15, 20 years ago, YouTube used to be the kind of space where everybody felt more real, and now it's just like you don't know who's doing it for the career and for the money,
for the
and
money.
who's doing it because they, you know, who's actually doing it because they feel passionate about it, and who really wants to help people. And I think it's sad, because it's like, not even just that, but with the whole AI thing, going on a tangent now, but you just literally don't know what's real and what's fake anymore. And I saw an advert yesterday, Grammarly, and I really don't condone Grammarly, specifically because I was an English student. I just know so much about Grammarly, and I just don't condone it. And it's funny to me because at the very end of the advert they said to use this to make it sound more like you, to make your essay, like your essay deserves to sound more like you. And I just thought, well, that's so what?
Yeah, your essay sounds like you, not a robot.
If you're using a generated platform, like, it's obviously not going to sound more like you. And obviously I'm guilty of using things like this in the past, where I've needed to check my own grammar, like not necessarily Grammarly, but other things that I may have used. Like, at the end of the day, we're not all perfect. We're going to have those moments where we're just thinking like, oh, I really can't anymore. I'm so tired of this. That's fine, but it's the way that they're trying to sell it to you that scares me. It's the way that they're trying to sell AI. It's literally replacing us, and that is scary. And I just keep thinking, like, it's so scary. The world is such a scary place, and I think we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the effects on one's mental health from having to deal with that.
Well, do you know what? I was thinking about this actually when you were just saying about AI. I remember watching this podcast, this woman, and she was like really big in AI, and I think she's like I don't know what she said, I can't remember exactly, I listened to it a very long time ago, but basically she'd worked with like governments and she'd worked with people and big companies basically pushing AI, and she came on this podcast just like preaching it, right? And she was saying how amazing it is and how it just like takes time out, you know, it eliminates the what's the word? Oh, it saves you time and this, you know, like she's basically going on about how amazing AI is, and the whole time I kept thinking like, so basically just like don't do anything. Just don't do anything. She was saying how you can use it to plan your fitness, plan your life, plan this, plan that, book a holiday, and like literally any single part of your life, any part, or going on a walk. She said you could even go on a walk and like, you know, talk to the chat, you know, AI bot, whatever. I sound like such an old lady, but I, you know, talk to the AI and stuff like this to like help you and give you advice so you don't have to call up a friend. I'm like, so where's the human interaction?
Your own thoughts.
Yeah, where's sitting with your own thoughts?
Well.
Where's the human interaction? Where's it thinking for yourself? It's going to get to the point where people have been so dumbed down, and even I'm very guilty of this, where, because as an example, fitness, like I have no idea what I'm doing with that. So the first thing in my head I think to do, instead of going and asking someone who goes to the gym regularly or who has done fitness for years and years and years, my first thought is, yeah, like Fleur, do you know what I mean? Who's been more helpful than any AI, do you know what I mean? But like my first thought is go to ChatGPT and ask it to create me a fitness plan. Put in all my needs, put in my goals, put in my dietary requirements, put in every single part of what I'm trying to achieve, and create me a fitness plan. And it created me a fitness plan which I thought was amazing, and I wondered why I couldn't stick to it, and I showed Fleur it and she was like, no one can ever stick to this, because it was like Pilates.
Well, you would be able to stick to it, but when you've like been, because the thing is with the gym, and I think a lot of people don't realise this, but if you're starting from never going, you cannot possibly
go from not
yourself to go 7 days a week. Like,
yeah.
Your body is just not ready for that. Even 2 times a week, even that your body's gonna be like, what's going on? Like, you have to ease into it slowly. And the problem with AI, and obviously if you want to use it, that's fine. Molly and I use it for certain things, and it's okay to use it when you really need to,
in the right context.
In the right context. But it's when you use it for everything, and things like making a gym plan, like even I had used it for something like that, but I had made my own gym plan beforehand, and I just double checked that there wasn't anything in it that might harm me, or you know, anything like that, that it was okay, and that it was in the right kind of format, that
you adapted it.
When you allow it to do the whole thing for you, that's the problem. You need to have your own say, because it's your life, right? And AI doesn't know you. AI doesn't know that you've not gone to the gym before. AI doesn't know that you maybe are not ready for this kind of like pressure with going to the gym. Like, AI doesn't know absolutely everything there is to know about you, maybe the way that you do, or maybe even the way that your friends do or your loved ones do. And I think sometimes we think it's just a quick, easy solution because it's quick and it's easy, but sometimes that path can have a lot more damage, you know?
So yeah, I'd really just say, like, start actually thinking for yourself, you know, because that is ultimately how you develop yourself, is by thinking about what you need and what serves you, not what other people think serves you, or not what AI thinks that you need, you know? It's just about creating it and making it personal to you. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that sometimes sitting with that silence and sitting with also the fear of what's going on in the world, and just sitting with it, that there is more empathy and interaction in doing that than just ignoring it and scrolling past it and pretending like you don't care. When you know you do care, I think that everybody cares. I think the issue is there's a lot of people that
really, I think a lot of people don't.
Energy. Yeah, there are
I think the people who
don't
give a crap. Yeah.
There are some people that are like that, but I don't think that that's the majority of the collection. I think the majority of the collection just doesn't want to exert energy on it and pretends not to care, but there's always at least a little bit of sliver of guilt of scrolling past that, you know? And I'm guilty of that. I have done that in the past when I've got so much going on in my life and I physically can't comprehend more pain. I stay away from the news. In fact, I went a good few years of my life not even watching the news. I would only go from like what other people were saying, or like, for example, my granddad watches it every single morning, so he would tell me things from it, or whenever he would stay round, suddenly the news would be on, and I would just realise, like, even the tone of it, the things that they're sharing, like the whole
It's very biased.
The way that the news works, it's quite scary. Like, it makes you feel so stressed. And so understanding that if you want to take breaks from that, that's fine. If you don't want to take breaks from it and you want to consume it, understanding the balance of knowing not to let it control your life. And also with everything going on social media, with AI, everything has a balance, and you need to find that balance, and you need to listen to what works for you instead of what works for other people. We're going to end off the episode here. I know it's a bit of a short one, but we're cutting for time. But definitely, I think we will come back to this subject another time, because I think there's so much more that we can say on the matter.
I think it's good as well just to kind of like insert this little snippet into your life, because I think a lot of people need to hear it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just about getting the message across, which I think is like the most important like takeaway.
But yeah, before we end it off, we're just gonna say, it feels a bit weird to do this because we literally just said that this kind of content sometimes feels fake. But you know what?
Let's make it real.
With this one thing about what we do a week to stay grounded, Molly and I always are real with this, okay? We're always real with this, and what we say we actually do. So we're never just saying it for the sake of it. But Molly, what are you gonna be doing this week to stay grounded?
So my private jet is actually picking me up in around like 20 minutes. No, not 20 minutes, like around, I think 20 minutes in the future, in Tuesday.
20 minutes in the future.
So my private jet's picking me up, and I'm also going to be having a meeting with the Queen of Norway as well. So I think really just prioritizing me getting in my 20 hours of gym a day and eating all of my
100,000 steps.
Yeah, 100,000 steps, no meat, just plate of spinach every day. So yeah, and just like, you know, meditating for like 3 hours. I think that's pretty good what I'm gonna be doing. What about you, Fleur?
She's obviously joking, by the way.
Really? I'm being serious. I'm being serious, guys.
I just know there's gonna be at least one person who actually thinks you're being for real. Especially someone that's like never listened to our or watched our podcast before. They were like, wow, these girls are fake.
Yeah, imagine just talking about all that and then now you're gonna go do that.
For reals though, what are you gonna be doing this week?
Oh, for real? I think this week I really want to just prioritize just sitting with myself. I think I just want to stop. Like, the first thing I do when I wake up is go on my phone, and this is another part and parcel of reason as to why I think people are so stressed out, is because of just like, you know, waking up and just seeing so many different people's opinions. For example, this morning, right, I woke up to, the first thing I do, and I don't know why, it's a habit I'm trying to stop, is wake up and check my social media. And I literally checked my YouTube and someone said, oh, you have a massive forehead. Don't get me wrong, it didn't ruin my vibe or anything like that, but it's just like, why expose myself to people's judgment or people's criticism or people's opinions, like, when I haven't even opened my eyes properly. First thing in the morning, I haven't even got out of bed, haven't even opened my curtains, but the first thing I do is check social media. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to be doing. That's the thing I'm going to be doing this week to help me stay grounded, is not checking social media first thing and just being present with myself. What about you?
That is also something that I'm incorporating into my life, and one tip I would say for that is, if you need to, just listen to like frequency music or jazz music in the morning. Or sometimes what I need to do, and I do this usually on like work mornings, if I'm like so sleepy and I need something to keep me awake, I'll choose something that is okay for me to consume, like a productive vlog or something that I know is going to inspire me. I think it's okay to watch content in the morning, just like Molly said, you need to be mindful of it. But one habit that I'm doing right now is doing as much Farsi practice a day as I can. I'm aiming for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes a day, just because beforehand it was only maybe like an hour or two a week, and I think that if I do it this way, then I'm looking at 3 to 4 hours a week, which is much better. And obviously with, you know, me being half Iranian, I want to be able to be more involved in my father's language. So yeah, that's one of my goals, to be more grounded this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like that is such a good goal as well, because it's so good to be in touch with your mother tongue, and, you know, in touch with your homeland, and in touch with everything that kind of shapes you, you know. It's like, well, it's half of you, so of course, like, that's such a good goal.
The day that I'm like fluent in Farsi is oh my god, I will cry of tears of joy, because I've got my whole life just not understanding what anyone is saying, and it's so sad. And I just want to be able to hold a conversation with someone, and I can, but like a proper conversation You know, like I want to be able to speak in politics in my language. I want to be able to have a deep conversation, a deep one-to-one, you know? That's when I know.
Not just conversation. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the very end of the episode. We really hope you guys enjoyed and just found this to be helpful for you at whatever part and parcel of your life. And we will definitely make another episode like this, going into a lot more detail on how to maybe overcome your own personal struggles, your own personal problems and things like this. So definitely stay tuned for that. And if you guys enjoyed the episode, be sure to give us a subscribe or follow. We were on our YouTube or Spotify, depending on where you're listening to this. Give a follow to our Instagram and TikTok, where we post daily updates, daily quotes, daily things, just to help you and motivate you and just help you find a bit of peace in this fast-paced world. So yeah, we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!
Bye!